A murder in the rain. The rain had been falling over downtown Chicago for nearly 3 hours, turning the streets into shimmering ribbons of reflected light. Midnight traffic moved slowly along Michigan Avenue, headlights slicing through the mist while pedestrians hurried beneath umbrellas, eager to escape the storm. At 11:47 p.m., a frantic 911 call shattered the quiet rhythm of the city. A businessman had been found lying motionless in an alley just steps away from one of Chicago's most luxurious hotels. Within minutes, flashing red and blue lights painted the rain-soaked pavement as officers from the Chicago Police Department secured the scene. Yellow crime scene tape fluttered in the cold wind while detectives photographed every inch of the narrow alley. The victim lay on his back beside a black luxury sedan. His tailored suit was soaked with rainwater, but a dark crimson stain spread across his white dress shirt. A single gunshot wound to the chest had ended his life almost instantly. There were no signs of robbery. His expensive watch remained on his wrist. His wallet was untouched. His wedding ring still glimmered beneath the flashing emergency lights. Someone hadn't wanted his money. Someone had wanted him dead. Special Agent Ethan Carter stepped beneath the police tape, his black overcoat damp from the rain. At 34, Ethan had earned a reputation inside the FBI as one of its most relentless homicide investigators. Calm under pressure and meticulous with evidence, he had solved cases that others believed were impossible. Tonight, however, something felt different. He crouched beside the victim, carefully studying the scene before speaking. What do we know? Detective Maria Brooks handed him a folder protected inside a waterproof sleeve. Victim is Daniel Whitmore. 46. CEO of Whitmore Technologies. Estimated time of death between 11 and 11:30. Ethan glanced toward the alley entrance. Any witnesses? Maria shook her head. Only security cameras. The storm kept most people indoors. A forensic technician approached holding a transparent evidence bag. Agent Carter, we recovered this near the victim. Inside the bag was a silver keychain shaped like a small feather. Simple, elegant, completely out of place. Maria frowned. Think it belongs to the victim? Ethan studied it for a long moment. No. Something about it felt personal, almost intentional, as though the killer had wanted investigators to find it. A few feet away, another technician called out. We've got partial fingerprints on the driver's side door. Ethan walked over immediately. Good condition? Better than expected. The rain didn't wash everything away. If we're lucky, Ethan said, they'll give us our first lead. Hours later, inside the mobile forensic unit, the fingerprint scan returned a match. The room fell silent as the identity appeared on the monitor. Olivia Bennett. Age 30. Occupation, forensic artist. No criminal record. No known connection to Daniel Whitmore. Ethan stared at the screen, puzzled. A forensic artist knew better than almost anyone how to avoid leaving evidence behind. So why had her fingerprints been found at a murder scene? Outside, thunder rolled across the Chicago skyline. Somewhere in the city, Olivia Bennett had no idea that before sunrise, every law enforcement agency involved in the investigation would know her name. And Special Agent Ethan Carter was already on his way to find her. Part 2. The Prime Suspect. By 6:30 the following morning, the rain had finally stopped, leaving Chicago wrapped in a cool gray dawn. The city's towering skyline reflected across puddles that still covered the sidewalks as commuters began another ordinary day, unaware that one of the city's most influential businessmen had been murdered just hours earlier. Inside the FBI's Chicago field office, Special Agent Ethan Carter stood before a digital evidence board. Daniel Whitmore's photograph occupied the center, surrounded by surveillance stills, forensic reports, and a timeline of his final hours. One image held Ethan's attention. A grainy frame captured from a hotel security camera showed a young woman entering the parking garage at 10:05 p.m. She wore a dark trench coat with the hood pulled low, but when the footage was enhanced, her face became unmistakably queer. Olivia Bennett. The timestamp placed her less than 30 minutes before Whitmore was killed. Detective Maria Brooks stepped beside him, carrying a fresh cup of coffee. "Background check came back clean," she said. "No arrests. No outstanding warrants. Master's degree in forensic illustration. She occasionally consults with local law enforcement to reconstruct unidentified victims." Ethan frowned. A forensic artist walking into a crime scene before a murder? That's either an impossible coincidence, W8, or someone wants us to believe she's involved. Maria nodded. "We also found financial records. 3 deposits totaling $50,000 were transferred into her account over the last 6 months. From Whitmore? No." She handed Ethan another file. The transfers came from shell companies. Whoever sent the money covered their tracks. Ethan flipped through the pages. Nothing about Olivia's life suggested violence. She lived alone in a quiet apartment on Chicago's North Side. No extravagant purchases, no unexplained travel, no known criminal associates. It didn't fit. His instincts told him something was missing. An hour later, Ethan and Maria arrived outside Olivia's apartment building. The neighborhood was peaceful. Tree-lined streets, small cafes opening for the morning, joggers passing with headphones in their ears. It felt worlds away from the blood-stained alley where Whitmore had died. They climbed to the 3rd floor. Apartment 3B. Ethan knocked firmly. No answer. He waited, then knocked again. Still nothing. Maria glanced at him. Maybe she's already at work. Before Ethan could reply, the apartment door across the hallway opened. An elderly woman peeked outside. "Are you looking for Olivia?" she asked cautiously. Ethan displayed his badge. "When did you last see her?" The woman thought for a moment. "Late last night." She looked frightened. She came home carrying a large envelope. About 20 minutes later, someone knocked on her door. "Did you see who it was?" "No, but I heard them arguing." "What about?" "I couldn't make out the words." She lowered her voice. Then whoever it was left. Olivia came out a few minutes later, tea, and she was crying. Ethan exchanged a quick look with Maria. "When did she leave?" "Early this morning, before sunrise." She packed a suitcase. Maria's expression hardened. "She's running." Ethan wasn't convinced. People guilty of murder often fled. But innocent people fled too, especially if someone wanted them silenced. As they turned to leave, Ethan noticed something wedged beneath Olivia's welcome mat. A folded sheet of paper. He carefully slicked on latex gloves and unfolded it. There was only one sentence, typed in bold black letters. "Stop looking for the truth, or she dies next." For the first time since taking the case, Ethan realized this investigation wasn't simply about identifying a killer. Someone was already one step ahead of the FBI. And they were watching every move he made. Part 3. Their first interrogation. Ethan folded the anonymous note and slipped it into an evidence bag. The hallway suddenly felt much smaller. Someone had entered Olivia Bennett's apartment building, left a direct threat, and disappeared without leaving a trace. It wasn't the act of someone trying to escape justice. It was the act of someone controlling the investigation. Maria broke the silence. "We need to circulate her photo immediately." Ethan nodded, though something still didn't sit right. If she's guilty, why leave a warning instead of letting us arrest her? Maria looked at him. "You think she's being framed?" "I think someone wants us chasing Olivia instead of the real killer." 40 minutes later, Olivia's photograph appeared on law enforcement databases across Illinois, not as a convicted criminal, but as a person of interest in the murder of Daniel Whitmore. At the FBI field office, agents monitored traffic cameras, airport terminals, train stations, and toll booths. At 9:14 a.m., a hit came through. A facial recognition camera had captured Olivia entering Chicago Union Station less than an hour earlier. "There," an analyst shouted. The still image showed Olivia wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, pulling a small navy blue suitcase behind her. Her expression wasn't calm. She kept looking over her shoulder, as if she believed someone was following her. Ethan studied the image carefully. Zoom in. The technician enlarged the photograph. Olivia's right wrist was bruised, not badly, but enough to suggest someone had grabbed her forcefully within the last day. Maria noticed it too. Could have happened during the murder, or during whatever happened after she got home. Ethan grabbed his jacket. "Let's go." Union Station buzzed with travelers rushing toward departing trains. Announcements echoed through the terminal while rolling suitcases clicked across the polished marble floor. Ethan and Maria moved quickly through the crowd, scanning every face. "There," Maria whispered. Near platform 18, Olivia stood alone beside a ticket kiosk. She looked exhausted. Dark circles framed her eyes. Her hair was loosely tied back, and she clutched a leather shoulder bag tightly against her chest. She wasn't checking departure times. She was watching the entrances, waiting, or hiding. Ethan raised a hand toward Maria. No sudden moves. He approached slowly, keeping his FBI badge visible. Olivia Bennett? She turned. For a brief moment, relief flashed across her face. Then she saw the badge. The relief vanished. "You've been looking for me," she said quietly. "We need to ask you some questions." She swallowed hard. "This is about Daniel Whitmore." "You knew him?" Her eyes widened. Preek, I met him once. Your fingerprints were found on his car." She stared at Ethan, genuinely confused. "What?" "Last night. I've never touched his car. You were captured on surveillance footage entering the hotel parking garage. I wasn't there. The footage says otherwise." Olivia shook her head again, panic creeping into her voice. "Someone wants you to believe that." Passengers streamed around them, oblivious to the tense conversation unfolding only a few feet away. Ethan watched her carefully. Years of interviewing suspects had taught him to recognize rehearsed lies. Olivia's breathing was uneven. Her hands trembled. Her fear felt real. Not fear of being caught, fear of something much worse. He lowered his voice. "Olivia, if you're innocent, tell me why you left your apartment before sunrise." She hesitated, then looked over Ethan's shoulder. Her expression changed instantly, her face drained of color. "No," she whispered. Ethan turned. At the far end of the terminal, a tall man in a dark coat stood perfectly still among the crowd. He wasn't boarding a train. He wasn't carrying luggage. He was watching Olivia. The moment their eyes met, the man slipped behind a column and disappeared. Olivia grabbed Ethan's arm with surprising force. "He's here," she whispered urgently. "You have to believe me." Who? "The man who's trying to kill me." Before Ethan could ask another question, a deafening gunshot echoed through Union Station. Glass shattered. People screamed. The crowd erupted into chaos. Olivia instinctively ducked. Ethan pulled her to the ground as another shot struck a nearby information board, sending shards of glass raining across the terminal. This was no longer an interrogation. Someone had just tried to silence the FBI's prime suspect in broad daylight. And for the first time since the investigation began, Ethan Carter realized Olivia Bennett might not be the killer. She might be the next victim. The woman in the security footage shots fired at Union Station. The sharp crack of gunfire echoed through Chicago Union Station, followed by a wave of terrified screams. Travelers abandoned their luggage and sprinted in every direction. Parents pulled children close. Station employees shouted emergency instructions, and the once orderly terminal dissolved into chaos. "Federal agents, get down!" Ethan Carter shouted, drawing his service weapon as he shielded Olivia Bennett behind a concrete support pillar. A third shot rang out. The bullet struck a digital departure board, showering the marble floor with broken glass. Olivia flinched, covering her head. "They found me." "So," she whispered, her voice barely audible.
"I knew they would."
Ethan glanced toward the upper balcony, where he believed the shots had originated. Through the milling crowd, he caught a fleeting glimpse of a man in a dark overcoat disappearing behind a row of storefronts. "There!" Ethan pointed. Maria Brooks was already moving. "I'll cut him off!" Without hesitation, she sprinted toward the escalators, while Ethan remained with Olivia. His first responsibility had changed. Minutes earlier, Olivia had been the FBI's prime suspect. Now she was a potential target in an active assassination attempt. He couldn't risk leaving her alone. 2 uniformed transit officers rushed toward them. "Agent Carter," one called. "SWAT is securing the building." "Lock down every exit," Ethan ordered. "Nobody leaves until every surveillance camera is reviewed." The officers nodded and disappeared into the confusion. Olivia slowly lowered her hands. Her breathing was uneven. Tears welled in her eyes, but she fought to remain composed. "I told you," she said quietly. "Someone wants me dead." Ethan holstered his weapon only after the immediate threat appeared to pass. He studied her carefully. She wasn't reacting like someone whose escape plan had failed. She was reacting like someone who had expected this moment for days. "Look at me," he said calmly. She raised her eyes. "I need the truth." "I've been telling the truth." "Then start from the beginning." Before Olivia could answer, Maria's voice crackled over Ethan's radio. "The shooter got away." Ethan closed his eyes for a brief moment. "Any identification?" "Negative." He ditched his coat near the west exit and disappeared into traffic. "Crime scene unit is collecting evidence now." "Understood." Ethan clipped the radio back onto his belt. Another dead end. Or so it seemed. A young crime scene technician hurried toward him carrying a clear evidence bag. "Agent Carter, we recovered this near the shooter's position." Inside was an empty 9mm shell casing. At first glance, it appeared ordinary. Then, Ethan noticed something unusual. A tiny symbol had been engraved into the brass. A raven. Its wings spread wide. He frowned. This wasn't made by the manufacturer. The technician nodded. "It looks hand-etched." Olivia's face turned ghostly pale the moment she saw it. "No!" W. 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 Ethan looked up immediately. "You recognize it?" She hesitated. Her lips trembled. "I've seen that symbol before." "Where?" She looked around the terminal as if afraid someone might overhear. "In the envelope." "What envelope?" "The one Daniel Whitmore gave me." Ethan's pulse quickened. "You said you barely knew him." I lied. The words hung heavily between them. "I met Daniel 3 days ago," Olivia admitted. "He contacted me privately. He said he needed my help identifying someone from an old photograph." "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because after I met him." So she swallowed hard. "P.S. He told me that if anything happened to him, I could trust no one, even the FBI." Ethan stared at her. Daniel Whitmore had anticipated his own murder. That changed everything. "Where is the photograph now?" he asked. Olivia tightened her grip on the leather bag resting against her side. "I still have it." Before Ethan could respond, his phone vibrated. The caller ID displayed a name he hadn't expected to see. Assistant Director Richard Hayes, his immediate supervisor. Ethan answered. "Carter." Hayes spoke without greeting. "Bring Olivia Bennett to the field office immediately. She's cooperating." "Good." There was a brief pause. Then Hayes added in a cold, measured tone, "And don't let anyone else question her." The line went dead. Ethan lowered the phone slowly. Something about the conversation unsettled him. Hayes hadn't asked whether Olivia was injured. He hadn't asked about the shooting. He hadn't even asked if Ethan was safe. His only concern had been getting Olivia into FBI custody as quickly as possible. Across the terminal, Olivia noticed the change in Ethan's expression. "What is it?" He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "I'm no longer sure who we're supposed to trust." Hidden camera. A convoy of FBI vehicles pulled away from Union Station under flashing lights, weaving through late morning traffic toward the Chicago field office. Inside the lead SUV, silence filled the cabin. Olivia sat in the back seat, clutching her leather shoulder bag tightly against her chest. Ethan sat beside her instead of across from her, an unusual decision for transporting a person of interest. He wasn't treating her like a prisoner. He was protecting her. As they crossed the Chicago River, Ethan noticed Olivia staring out the window. "You've been looking over your shoulder since we met," he said. "Who are you afraid of?" She hesitated before answering. "I don't know his name." "The man with the raven symbol." She nodded. "I've never seen his face clearly. Daniel always referred to him as the Raven." Ethan frowned. "Daniel told you that?" "Not directly. He said there was someone powerful who had been watching him for years, someone who could erase records, buy silence, and make people disappear." She looked down at her hands. "I thought he was paranoid. And now? I think he was trying to save my life." The SUV rolled into the secure underground garage of the FBI field office. As the elevator carried them upward, Ethan quietly pressed the emergency stop button between floors. Maria looked at him, puzzled. "What are you doing?" "I want 5 minutes alone with Olivia." Maria crossed her arms. "Hayes ordered us to bring her straight upstairs." "I know. So why ignore him?" Ethan lowered his voice. "Because someone knew we'd find Olivia at Union Station." Maria's expression hardened. "You think information leaked?" "I think someone inside law enforcement tipped off the shooter." The realization settled heavily between them. If Ethan was right, the investigation had already been compromised from within. The elevator remained still. Ethan turned to Olivia. "You mentioned Daniel gave you an envelope." She nodded. It contained one photograph and a handwritten note. "Where are they?" She slowly unzipped her leather bag and removed a large manila envelope. The edges were worn, as though it had been opened and closed dozens of times. She handed it to Ethan. Inside was an old black and white photograph. 5 people stood in front of a lakeside cabin. The picture appeared to be at least 25 years old. 4 faces had been carefully crossed out with black ink. Only one remained untouched. A young boy, perhaps 8 years old, standing in the center of the group. On the back of the photograph, someone had written 4 words in faded blue ink. "Find the boy first." Ethan examined the image carefully. "Do you recognize anyone?" Olivia shook her head. "No." "What about Daniel?" "He wasn't in the picture." Maria leaned closer. "Then why hire a forensic artist?" Olivia took a slow breath. "Because Daniel believed the crossed-out faces could be digitally reconstructed." "You can do that?" "Yes." "Did you?" She nodded once. "But I never finished." "Why?" Olivia's eyes filled with fear. "Because someone broke into my studio." Ethan looked up. "You never reported it." "I was going to." "What changed?" "They didn't steal my computer. They didn't steal my equipment. They left everything exactly where it was." She paused. "Except one thing." "What?" "My reconstruction sketches." Someone hadn't wanted the original photograph. They wanted to know what Olivia had discovered. A cold realization settled over Ethan. This murder investigation had started long before Daniel Whitmore was killed. The photograph wasn't evidence of the crime. It was the reason the crime had happened. Just then, Ethan's phone buzzed with a secure message from the FBI Digital Forensics Unit. "You, Argent. New surveillance footage recovered from the hotel parking garage." He opened the file. The video showed Daniel Whitmore arriving shortly before 11:00 p.m. Seconds later, Olivia entered the garage exactly as the earlier footage had shown. But then, Ethan noticed something no one had mentioned. At 10:51 p.m., 1 minute before, Olivia appeared. A second figure walked into the garage. The person wore a dark hooded coat and kept their face hidden from every camera. Yet, as they passed beneath a ceiling light, one detail became unmistakably clear. Pinned to the inside of the coat was a small silver emblem, a raven with its wings spread wide. Ethan replayed the clip twice, then 3 times. The shooter at Union Station, the engraved shell casing, Daniel's warning. The mysterious photograph. None of it was a coincidence anymore. Someone connected to the raven symbol had been present at the murder scene before Olivia arrived. Which meant one thing. The FBI's prime suspect might actually be the only witness who could identify the organization behind Daniel Whitmore's murder. And somewhere inside the bureau, someone was desperate to make sure she never got the chance. A dangerous attraction. The elevator doors slid open onto the 6th floor of the FBI's Chicago field office. Ethan slipped the photograph back into the envelope before anyone in the hallway could see it. "Maria," he said quietly, "don't mention the new surveillance footage to anyone, not yet." She gave him a questioning look. "You think someone upstairs is leaking information?" "I don't know who," Ethan replied, "but until we do, we keep this between us." Maria nodded once. Understood. An agent escorted Olivia into interview room 3. Unlike the cold, windowless interrogation rooms used for hardened criminals, this room was simple. A metal table, 4 chairs, a recording camera mounted in the corner, and a large pane of one-way glass. Olivia sat down, her eyes immediately drifting toward the camera.
"They're watching,"
she murmured. "They always do," Ethan replied. He noticed her shoulders tense. "You don't have to be afraid of me." A faint smile crossed her face for the first time since they'd met. "I'm not." The words surprised him. Most people viewed FBI agents with caution, especially after becoming suspects in a homicide investigation. Olivia seemed different. She wasn't afraid of Ethan. She was afraid of someone else, someone she believed could reach her even inside a federal building. Moments later, Assistant Director Richard Hayes entered the room. In his early 50s, Hayes carried the calm confidence of a veteran investigator. His gray suit was immaculate, his expression unreadable. "Agent Carter," he said, "I'll take it from here." Ethan remained seated. "With respect, sir, I'd like to continue the interview." Hayes's smile was polite but firm. That wasn't a request. A heavy silence settled over the room. Finally, Ethan stood. "I'll be observing." Hayes gave a brief nod before taking the seat across from Olivia. He folded his hands neatly on the table. "Ms. Bennett, I'd like to discuss Daniel Whitmore." Olivia looked at Ethan before answering. "He asked me to reconstruct an old photograph." "What photograph?" I'd rather explain it to Agent Carter." Hayes's expression tightened ever so slightly. "You're speaking to me now." Ethan watched from the observation room behind the one-way glass. Something felt off. Hayes wasn't asking about the shooting at Union Station. He wasn't asking about the shell casing. He wasn't interested in the man with the raven emblem. His questions revolved around one thing only: the photograph. As if that mattered more than the murder itself, Maria stepped beside Ethan. "You seeing this?" He nodded. "Every question leads back to the photo." A digital forensics analyst hurried into the observation room carrying a tablet. "Agent Carter, I think you'll want to see this." The analyst tapped the screen. "We enhanced the hotel security footage." The image sharpened dramatically. The hooded figure wearing the Raven emblem paused briefly beneath a ceiling camera. For less than a second, the figure turned their head. Their face was still mostly hidden, but one detail became unmistakably visible. A thin scar ran from the left ear to the corner of the jaw. Maria's eyes widened. "I've seen that scar before." "Where?" She looked at Ethan. 5 years ago." Ethan frowned. "The Harbor District bombing?" Maria nodded. "The suspect escaped before we could identify him." A chill ran through Ethan. The Harbor District bombing had killed 11 people. The case had eventually gone cold after the primary suspect vanished without a trace. If the same man had resurfaced. Daniel Whitmore's murder was only one piece of something much larger. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from interview room 3. Ethan spun toward the live security monitor. Hayes had fallen backward, clutching his neck. Olivia stood frozen beside the table. The lights flickered once. Then the camera feed went black. "What happened?" Maria shouted. The technician frantically typed at his keyboard. "We lost every camera on this floor." At that exact moment, the building's fire alarm erupted. Red emergency lights began flashing throughout the office. Agents poured into the hallways as the evacuation system activated automatically. Ethan's instincts took over. He sprinted toward interview room 3. By the time he reached the door, smoke was beginning to fill the corridor. He shoved the door open. The room was empty. Assistant Director Hayes was gone. Olivia Bennett was gone. The only thing left behind was the manila envelope lying open on the floor. The photograph had disappeared, and taped to the center of the table was a single white card bearing a familiar black symbol, a raven with its wings spread wide. Beneath it, 3 chilling words had been typed in bold capital letters. "You're too late. A perfect alibi. The missing hour." The shrill sound of the fire alarm echoed through every floor of the FBI's Chicago field office. Agents hurried toward emergency exits while security personnel searched each corridor for anyone left behind. Red strobes flashed across the walls, painting the building in rhythmic bursts of crimson light. Special Agent Ethan Carter ignored the evacuation order. He stood in the center of interview room 3, staring at the empty chair where Olivia Bennett had been sitting less than 2 minutes earlier. "Seal this floor," he shouted into his radio. "Nobody leaves the building without identification." Static crackled before a familiar voice answered. "Already in progress." Maria Brooks appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. The elevator shut down automatically during the alarm. If someone took Olivia, they used the stairwells. Ethan's eyes scanned the room one last time. No signs of a struggle. No overturned furniture. No blood. Just the abandoned envelope and the white card with the raven emblem. Whoever had orchestrated this knew the building's emergency protocols. This wasn't a spontaneous escape. It was a carefully planned extraction. 20 minutes later, the fire department declared the alarm a false activation. No smoke, no fire, no electrical malfunction. Someone had triggered the system remotely. Inside the FBI's Situation Room, surveillance technicians worked feverishly to recover the missing security footage. Every monitor displayed the same message. Video signal, lost, time of interruption, 11,000,000,000,009 A. Myth, video restored, 12,000,009 p.m. Exactly 59 minutes. Nearly 1 full hour. An hour during which no cameras inside the building had recorded a single frame. Ethan folded his arms. "What happened during those 59 minutes?" The lead technician shook his head. "We don't know. Recover the backup servers. They're gone." "What do you mean, gone?" The storage drives were wiped. Wiped? Completely. Ethan stared at the technician in disbelief. "That's impossible." "It should be." The technician swallowed nervously. Whoever did this used administrator-level credentials. Silence filled the room. Only a handful of people inside the FBI had that level of access. Someone hadn't hacked the bureau. Someone inside the bureau had opened the door. Maria entered carrying another folder. "I think we have something." She spread several photographs across the conference table. "They're from traffic cameras around the building." Ethan examined them one by one at 11,041A. 9 minutes after the cameras failed, a black SUV exited the underground parking garage. Its license plates were partially obscured by mud. The driver's face couldn't be seen. The rear passenger window was tinted dark enough to hide whoever sat inside. "Can we identify the vehicle?" Maria nodded. "It belongs to the bureau." Ethan looked up. "Assigned to who?" She hesitated. "Assistant Director Richard Hayes." The room fell silent. Hayes had disappeared. Olivia had disappeared. And Hayes' official FBI vehicle had left the building during the missing hour. None of it made sense. Unless VIS hadn't been taken. He had left willingly. An hour later, Ethan unlocked Hayes' office. The room was immaculate. Books neatly arranged, awards polished. Not a single file left out of place. Too perfect. People who disappeared unexpectedly rarely cleaned their desks beforehand. Ethan slowly walked around the office. His eyes settled on a framed family photograph. Hayes, his wife, and 2 daughters stood smiling on a beach. Nothing unusual. Then something caught his attention. The frame was slightly crooked. He lifted it carefully. Behind it was a small magnetic key. Maria raised an eyebrow. Hidden compartment? Ethan unlocked the bottom drawer of Hayes' desk. Inside lay several classified case files, all unrelated, until he reached the final folder. Stamped across the front were bold red letters. PRO checked. Raven, his heartbeat quickened. He opened it. Every page inside had been removed. Only one sheet remained. Typed neatly across the center were 4 chilling words. "Trust no one, Carter." There was no signature, no date, only those words. Maria looked at him. Was Hayes trying to warn you? "I don't know." Before either of them could say another word, Ethan's phone vibrated. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Carter." Several seconds passed before a familiar voice whispered through the speaker. "Ethan." "He." It was Olivia. Her voice trembled. "I don't have much time. Where are you?" "They're listening." "Who's listening?" A shaky breath filled the line. "I remembered something." "What?" "The photograph." Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "The little boy in the picture." She paused. She. He wasn't a victim. Ethan gripped the phone tighter. Olivia, who was he? The connection crackled violently. Then one final sentence reached him before the call was cut off. He grew up to become one of them. The line went dead. Ethan lowered the phone slowly. For the first time, he realized the decades-old photograph wasn't just evidence of an old crime. It was the beginning of a conspiracy that had survived for more than 25 years. And somewhere inside that forgotten picture, W.Me was the identity of the person now controlling everything. Someone is lying. The call had lasted only 23 seconds, yet it changed the direction of the entire investigation. Ethan replayed the recording through the FBI's audio analysis software, while Maria stood beside him in the digital forensics lab. Olivia's voice was weak but unmistakable. The little boy. He grew up to become one of them. Then silence. The technician removed his headphones. There's something else. He isolated the background noise from the call. At first, all Ethan could hear was static. Then the software filtered out the interference. A distant train horn, metal wheels grinding against tracks, and a computerized announcement. Platform 4, delayed. Night. Night C. Maria leaned closer. That's a train station. Or somewhere near one, Ethan replied. The technician nodded. The signal was routed through multiple prepaid phones. Whoever helped her knew how to avoid being traced. But the background audio is genuine. So she wasn't calling from a safe house. No. She was trying to tell us where she was. An hour later, Ethan and Maria were reviewing every train station within a 50-mile radius of Chicago. Nothing fit. Union Station, Ogilvy Transportation Center, LaSalle Street Station. None had a Platform 4, with the exact announcement captured in the recording. Frustrated, Ethan leaned back in his chair. We're missing something. Maria spread a regional rail map across the conference table. What if it wasn't Chicago? Ethan looked at the map. Olivia had disappeared less than 2 hours earlier. She couldn't have traveled far. Unless... They moved her by helicopter, Ethan said. Maria looked up. Or by private aircraft. They'd be outside the city before anyone noticed. Just then, Ethan's desk phone rang. Agent Carter. This is Officer Liam O'Connor with Chicago Police. Ethan straightened. What do you have? We found Daniel Whitmore's phone. Where? It was recovered from the Chicago River during a dive operation. Can you access it? It's heavily damaged. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The evidence recovery unit buzzed with activity as technicians carefully dismantled Whitmore's waterlogged smartphone. One engineer looked up as Ethan entered. We recovered part of the encrypted storage. Anything useful? He plugged a monitor into the recovery workstation, a calendar entry. The screen displayed only one appointment, Tuesday, 8:30 p. Meet OBOB, Olivia Bennett. So Daniel expected to meet her, Maria said. Ethan nodded. What else? The engineer hesitated. There was also a deleted video. Can it be restored? We recovered the last 32 seconds. The video began to play. Daniel Whitmore appeared on screen inside what looked like his office. His face was pale. He kept glancing toward the door. If anyone finds this, Nam, he said, breathing heavily. Nam. It means I was right. He reached toward the camera. There are people inside the bureau. Ethan exchanged a quick glance with Maria. Daniel continued. They call themselves. The recording suddenly glitched. Digital artifacts filled the screen. When the image returned, Daniel was lying on the floor. The camera had fallen sideways. Footsteps echoed through the room. A shadow entered the frame. Only polished black shoes were visible. The person stopped beside Daniel's body. Then, the screen went completely black. The room remained silent long after the video ended. Maria finally spoke. The killer interrupted the recording. Ethan nodded slowly and deleted most of it. Back at FBI headquarters, another surprise awaited them. The Bureau's Internal Affairs Division had arrived. 3 agents stood outside Ethan's office. The lead investigator stepped forward. Special Agent Carter? Yes. I'm Agent Rebecca Sloan, Internal Affairs. She handed him an official document. We've received a formal complaint regarding your handling of the Whitmore investigation. Ethan scanned the paperwork. On what grounds? Failure to follow direct orders. Maria frowned. What orders? You delayed bringing Olivia Bennett into federal custody. You stopped the elevator. You concealed evidence. And you withheld surveillance footage from senior leadership. Ethan looked up. Who filed this? Rebecca closed the folder. I'm not authorized to disclose that. But I can tell you this. She lowered her voice. Someone wants you removed from the case. As Internal Affairs walked away, Maria exhaled sharply. They're trying to sideline you. No, Ethan replied quietly. They're trying to make sure I stop asking the right questions. His phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was an encrypted message from the FBI's cyber division. No sender, no signature. Just a single image. It was the enhanced black and white photograph Olivia had been reconstructing. The 4 faces that had been crossed out were now digitally restored. Ethan's heartbeat slowed as he examined them. The first face belonged to Daniel Whitmore. The second belonged to Assistant Director Richard Hayes. The third was an unfamiliar woman. But the 4th face made Ethan's blood run cold. He knew that face. He had worked beside him for nearly 8 years. Special Agent Marcus Reed, his closest friend, his most trusted partner. Marcus was supposed to be attending a counterterrorism conference in Washington. Yet, according to the restored photograph, number S, Parge SC, Marcus had been connected to Project Raven since childhood. Someone was lying, and Ethan no longer knew whether he was hunting a killer. W9, or working beside one. The anonymous phone call. The restored photograph lay on Ethan Carter's desk long after everyone else had left the conference room. 4 faces. Daniel Whitmore. Richard Hayes. An unidentified woman. And Marcus Reed. Ethan had trusted Marcus with his life on more than one occasion. They had graduated from the FBI Academy together, worked dozens of cases side by side, and celebrated promotions, holidays, and personal milestones as friends. There had to be another explanation. The photograph had to be misleading. Maria stepped into the office carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You've been staring at that picture for 15 minutes. Ethan looked up. If Marcus is involved, number. He couldn't finish the sentence. Maria placed a cup on the desk. "We don't know that he is. He never mentioned Project Raven, maybe because he didn't know." Ethan wasn't convinced. The timing was too perfect. Daniel Whitmore had been murdered. Hayes had vanished. Olivia had disappeared. Now Marcus, his closest ally, had surfaced in the center of a decades-old mystery. Either someone was framing everyone around him. WC. Tamamort. Or the conspiracy reached much deeper than he'd imagined. At 7:18 p.m., Marcus Reed walked into the office carrying a travel bag over one shoulder. "Tough day?" he asked with a tired smile. Ethan quickly turned the photograph face down. "I thought you were in Washington." Marcus set his bag on the floor. Conference ended early. He loosened his tie and looked around the nearly empty bullpen. "Heard you've had quite a day." "You could say that." Marcus leaned against the desk. "So, but where's the famous prime suspect?" "We lost her." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Lost her?" "Someone triggered a building-wide evacuation." "I heard." His expression remained calm. Almost too calm. Internal Affairs is already talking about it. Ethan watched him carefully. Marcus wasn't asking the questions Ethan expected. No curiosity about the shooting. No concern for Olivia's safety. No interest in Daniel Whitmore's video. Instead, Marcus seemed more interested in Ethan's mistakes. "You should get some rest," Marcus said. "You're exhausted." "I will." Marcus smiled faintly. "See you tomorrow." As he walked away, Ethan noticed something unusual. Marcus was wearing a brand new watch, a limited edition Swiss model. Elegant, expensive, far beyond what an FBI agent's salary would comfortably allow. It was a small detail. But after everything that had happened, Ethan had learned not to ignore small details. An hour later, Ethan sat alone in his apartment overlooking the Chicago skyline. Rain had returned, tapping softly against the windows. He spread every piece of evidence across his dining table. The Raven shell casing. The anonymous warning. Daniel's recovered video. The old photograph. None of it fit together. Yet somehow, it all pointed toward the same invisible organization. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. Again. He answered immediately. Carter. Heavy breathing. No words. Who's this? Silence. Then. Tom. A distorted voice spoke through what sounded like a voice changer. You're asking the wrong questions. Ethan remained calm. Who are you? A friend. I don't have many of those lately. A faint chuckle came through the speaker. No. W. You don't. The caller continued. If you want Olivia Bennett alive, tube her. Tube. Ethan stood. What have you done with her? Tube. Stop investigating Daniel Whitmore. I don't negotiate with murderers. Another brief silence. Then the voice said something that froze Ethan where he stood. Check your mailbox. The line disconnected. Less than 2 minutes later, Ethan rushed downstairs to the apartment lobby. The building manager looked up from the reception desk. Everything okay, Agent Carter? When was the mail delivered? About 20 minutes ago. Ethan unlocked his mailbox. Inside, among the usual envelopes and advertisements, was a plain white package with no return address. It hadn't gone through the postal system. Someone had placed it there by hand. He carried it carefully to the lobby table and slipped on a pair of latex gloves. Maria arrived moments later, having received Ethan's emergency text.
You opened it yet?
He shook his head. Together, they carefully lifted the lid. Inside was a small disposable cell phone. Nothing else. No note, no fingerprints, no identifying marks. The screen suddenly lit up. Incoming video call. Neither of them spoke. Ethan accepted the call. The screen flickered to life. Olivia appeared on the display. She was sitting in a dimly lit room with her hands tied behind a chair. A fresh bruise marked her cheek, but she appeared conscious.
Ethan,
she said softly. Before he could answer, the camera shifted. A masked figure stepped into view behind her. The figure wore black gloves and a dark jacket. Pinned to the jacket was the now familiar silver raven emblem. The masked person placed a handgun on the table beside Olivia, then leaned toward the camera. When the voice came through the phone, it was no longer electronically distorted. It was clear, calm, and unmistakably familiar. You've always been one step behind, Carter. Ethan's face drained of color. He knew that voice. He had heard it almost every day for the past 8 years, standing beside him during investigations, sharing late-night coffee after difficult cases, laughing like an old friend. The call ended before the masked figure removed the disguise. Maria looked at Ethan. You recognize him? Ethan nodded slowly, unable to hide the shock in his eyes. I do. Who is it? He stared at the dark phone screen for several long seconds, then whispered the one name he never imagined he'd have to suspect. Marcus. Secrets behind the sketches. The secret studio. The name lingered in the silence. Marcus. Maria searched Ethan's face, hoping he would say he was mistaken. Instead, he stood perfectly still, replaying the final seconds of the video in his mind. The voice. The calm delivery. The slight rasp at the end of each sentence. It was unmistakable. Special Agent Marcus Reed. His partner. His closest friend. Or someone who wanted Ethan to believe exactly that. Maria folded her arms. We need to arrest him. Ethan slowly shook his head. Not yet. What? If Marcus is involved, he knows every FBI protocol. The moment we make a move, he'll disappear. And if he isn't, then we'll have destroyed the career of an innocent agent. Maria exhaled. So what's your plan? Ethan looked at the disposable phone lying on the table. We stop reacting. We start investigating. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the Chicago field office before sunrise. Most of the building was still dark. He bypassed the bullpen and headed directly to digital evidence. Only one person was already working. Senior digital forensics analyst Kevin Morales. "I need a favor," Ethan said. Kevin looked up from his workstation. "If this is official, I need paperwork." "It isn't." Kevin smiled. "Those are usually the interesting ones." Ethan placed the disposable phone on the desk. "I need everything you can recover from this." Kevin examined the device. "No SIM card. Can you trace it?" "I'll try." Quietly. Kevin's expression became serious. "You think someone's watching the bureau?" "I think they're already inside it." Kevin nodded without another question. "I'll call when I find something." Instead of returning to his office, Ethan drove across the city toward Olivia Bennett's forensic art studio. The building stood on a quiet side street, tucked between an antique bookstore and a small coffee shop. Yellow police tape still stretched across the entrance. The crime scene had been processed 2 days earlier, but the studio remained sealed. Ethan unlocked the door with an evidence key. The room was exactly as described in the initial report: drawing tables, high-resolution scanners, shelves filled with anatomy books, portrait sketches covering nearly every wall. At first glance, nothing appeared disturbed. But Olivia had said something that refused to leave Ethan's mind. They left everything. Inquisi. Inquisiwasi. 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 Someone hadn't come to steal. They had come looking for one specific piece of information. He slowly walked around the studio. Each portrait displayed incredible precision. Victims reconstructed from skeletal remains. Age progression illustrations for missing children. Facial reconstructions used to solve decades-old cold cases. Olivia wasn't just talented. She was one of the best forensic artists Ethan had ever seen. Near the back of the room, a large corkboard displayed dozens of unfinished sketches. Most had official case numbers written across the bottom. One corner of the board, however, was strangely empty. 4 pushpins remained in place. Whatever had once been displayed there had been removed carefully, not torn away, lifted. Ethan crouched beneath the board. A faint layer of charcoal dust covered the floor. He shined his flashlight across the wooden planks. Something caught the light. A tiny graphite fragment. He picked it up, then noticed another. They formed a trail leading toward an old wooden bookshelf. He pushed against it. Nothing happened. He examined the floor more closely. Fresh scrape marks curved in a shallow arc beneath the shelf. It moved. Bracing himself, Ethan pushed harder. With a dull grinding sound, the entire bookshelf slowly rotated inward. A narrow passage appeared behind it. Cold air drifted from the darkness. Maria, who had arrived moments earlier, stared in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding." Ethan switched on his flashlight. This wasn't in the building plans. The hidden room was barely 10 feet wide. Unlike the tidy studio outside, this space was untouched by clients or investigators. A single work table stood in the center. Stacks of sketchbooks lined the walls. Pinned above the desk were dozens of partially completed facial reconstructions. Every one of them had the same symbol drawn in the upper right corner: a raven. Maria walked slowly through the room. "Olivia never told us about this." "No." Ethan picked up the nearest sketchbook. Inside were detailed portraits of men and women. Some were labeled only with initials. Others carried dates stretching back nearly 15 years. The pages became more detailed with each passing year, almost as though Olivia had been documenting the same people for a very long time. Suddenly, Ethan stopped turning the pages. One sketch showed a man in his 40s with sharp features and a thin scar running from his left ear to the corner of his jaw. The exact scar captured in the enhanced hotel surveillance footage. Below the portrait, Olivia had handwritten 2 chilling words: "Still alive." Before Ethan could say anything, Kevin Morales called. His voice was urgent. "Agent Carter, you need to leave that studio immediately." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. "Why?" "I recovered hidden GPS data from the disposable phone." What did you find? It wasn't just receiving calls, it was transmitting. To who? Kevin took a slow breath. Whoever sent you that phone has been tracking its location this entire time. Ethan's eyes widened. He looked around the hidden room, then toward the front windows of the studio. Outside, a black SUV slowly rolled to a stop across the street. Its engine remained running. The driver's door opened. 3 men in dark tactical clothing stepped onto the sidewalk. Each wore a silver raven emblem on the collar of their jacket, and each carried a suppressed rifle. "They found us," Ethan said quietly. The line went silent. Then Kevin whispered, "Get out. Now." Hidden drawings. "They found us," Ethan repeated, his voice calm despite the adrenaline surging through him. From the hidden room, he could hear the faint creak of a car door closing outside. 3 men. Suppressed rifles. Professional formation. This wasn't an intimidation tactic. It was an extraction or an execution. Maria instinctively reached for her sidearm. "We've got one front entrance." Ethan shook his head. "No. Olivia built this room for a reason." He swept his flashlight across the cramped space. The walls were lined with shelves of sketchbooks, anatomical references, and rolled canvases. It looked like a private archive, not a panic room. "If she hid this place," he said, "she also planned a way out." Maria scanned the room. "You think there's another exit?" "There has to be." Outside, the bell above the studio's front door jingled. The intruders had entered. Their footsteps were slow, measured. No shouting, no rushing. They already knew exactly what they were looking for. The footsteps echoed through the empty studio. A deep voice broke the silence. "Search every room." Another replied, "The boss wants the notebooks." Not Ethan, not Maria, the notebooks. Ethan looked around the hidden room again. Whatever Olivia had been documenting was more valuable than killing 2 FBI agents. His flashlight stopped on an old drafting table. Unlike everything else in the room, the table was bolted to the floor. He knelt beside it. "Help me." Together, he and Maria pushed the heavy table aside. Beneath it was a rectangular metal hatch. Maria smiled. "I knew I liked this woman." Ethan lifted the hatch carefully. A narrow tunnel disappeared into darkness. A cool breeze drifted upward. "It's an escape route." "How long?" "No idea." Above them, a loud crash shook the ceiling. The intruders had found the rotating bookshelf. "We're out of time," Maria whispered. Before climbing into the tunnel, Ethan looked back at the walls one final time. Hundreds of sketches. Years of work. He couldn't carry everything. He had seconds to choose. His eyes settled on a leather portfolio tucked beneath the workbench. He opened it. Inside were 12 charcoal portraits, unlike any of the others. Each drawing was remarkably detailed. Every subject wore business attire. Politicians, corporate executives, judges, military officers. Each face had been marked with one of 3 handwritten labels, confirmed missing deceased. At the very end of the portfolio was a final page. No portrait, only a list of names. Ethan's pulse quickened as he read them. Daniel Whitmore, Richard Hayes, Marcus Reed, Olivia Bennett, Ethan Carter. His own name was 5th on the list. Someone had been tracking him long before this investigation began. He slipped the portfolio into his backpack. "We're going." The tunnel was narrow and damp, forcing them to move single file. Their flashlights illuminated old brick walls that appeared to date back nearly a century. "This wasn't built recently," Maria whispered. "No, it feels older than the building." Ethan nodded. "Probably part of Chicago's original utility tunnels." Behind them came the unmistakable sound of metal scraping against concrete. The hatch. Someone had found it. "They're coming," Maria said. Ethan increased his pace. The tunnel curved sharply before opening into a larger chamber. Rusted pipes lined the ceiling. Old electrical cables hung loosely from the walls. Then, Ethan noticed something strange. Fresh footprints. Not theirs. Someone had passed through here recently. He knelt beside one of the prints. Still damp. They're less than an hour old. Maria frowned.
You think Olivia came this way?
It's possible. If so, she hadn't escaped alone. Several minutes later, the tunnel ended at an abandoned maintenance room beneath a neighboring warehouse. Ethan carefully pushed open the steel door. Sunlight spilled inside. The warehouse appeared deserted. Dust covered the concrete floor. Broken pallets were stacked against one wall. Everything seemed quiet. Too quiet. Maria stepped out first. Clear. Ethan followed, keeping one hand on his weapon. As they crossed the warehouse, something caught his eye. On the far wall, hidden behind years of faded paint, was a charcoal drawing. A raven. Beneath it, someone had written a message in hurried handwriting. If you found this, T. True, trust the sketches, not the people. The handwriting was unmistakable. Olivia's, she had been here. Recently. Before Ethan could examine it further, Kevin called again. This time, he sounded shaken. Agent Carter. What is it? D-Chi what? I decrypted part of Olivia's hard drive. Tell me. The hidden sketches weren't just portraits. They're witness reconstructions. Witnesses to what? Kevin hesitated. I think Olivia spent the last 15 years identifying members of a secret criminal network. Ethan's heartbeat slowed. How many members? Kevin answered quietly. So far, DTU, 143. Before Ethan could respond, a loud metallic click echoed through the warehouse, the sound of a weapon being cocked. A voice spoke from somewhere behind the stacks of pallets. You should have stayed in the tunnel. Ethan and Maria spun around, weapons raised. A lone figure stepped out of the shadows. The man wore no mask, no tactical gear, only a dark suit. On his left cheek ran a thin scar from his ear to the corner of his jaw. The same scar from Olivia's sketch. The same scar captured in the hotel surveillance footage. He smiled faintly. Special Agent Carter. I've been looking forward to meeting you. The killer watches. The warehouse fell silent. Dust floated lazily through the beams of afternoon sunlight streaming from the broken skylights overhead. Ethan Carter kept his pistol trained on the man with the scar. So, Ethan said evenly, you're the one we've been chasing. The stranger smiled, almost amused. No. His voice was calm, refined. I'm the one who allowed you to chase me. Maria shifted slightly to Ethan's left, creating a wider angle. Hands where we can see them. The man raised his hands without hesitation. No sudden movements. No hidden weapon. No attempt to run. His confidence was unsettling. People who expected to lose didn't behave this way. You've been following Olivia Bennett, Ethan said. I'd been protecting something far more valuable. The Raven Organization. The smile disappeared. You know more than you should. And not enough. The stranger glanced toward the leather portfolio tucked beneath Ethan's arm. You found Olivia's work. Ethan didn't answer. The man's eyes narrowed. She was remarkably talented. She drew faces no one else could remember. Unfortunately, she remembered too much. Maria stepped forward. Where is Olivia? I don't know. Liar. The stranger shrugged. I hadn't seen her since yesterday. Ethan watched every expression, every blink, every hesitation. The man showed none of the usual signs of deception. Either he was telling the truth, or he had spent years perfecting the art of lying. Without warning, a loud crash echoed from the far side of the warehouse. Every instinct told Ethan to look. He didn't. The stranger had created a distraction. Instead, Ethan kept his eyes locked on him. A faint grin returned to the man's face. Good. You learn quickly. Then another voice echoed through the building. Drop your weapons. Ethan turned. 6 armed men emerged from behind stacked shipping containers. Each wore tactical gear. Each displayed the silver raven emblem. They had been there the entire time. Waiting. The scarred man hadn't come alone. He had come to delay them. Maria whispered without taking her eyes off the gunman. 7 against 2. Ethan quickly assessed the room. The main loading door. Blocked. The emergency exit. Too far. The broken office overlooking the warehouse. Possible cover. The Raven operatives spread out with military precision, slowly tightening the circle. One of them called out, "We only want the portfolio." Another added, "Hand it over, and you walk away." Ethan almost laughed. If I believed that, I wouldn't deserve this badge. The scarred man sighed. I was hoping you'd choose the easy option. He reached into his coat. Maria tightened her grip. Don't move. Instead of drawing a weapon, the man removed a small black remote. He pressed a single button. Nothing happened. For 2 long seconds. Then alarms began blaring throughout the warehouse. Sprinklers erupted overhead, sending sheets of water crashing onto the concrete floor. Visibility dropped instantly. Move! Ethan shouted. Using the sudden confusion, Ethan grabbed Maria's arm and sprinted toward the rusted staircase leading to the second-floor office. Bullets struck steel railings behind them. The suppressed gunfire sounded like violent snaps of breaking branches. Glass exploded beside Ethan's head. They reached the office and slammed the heavy metal door shut. Maria shoved an old filing cabinet against it. It won't hold forever. Ethan looked around the room. Old desks, broken computers, rotting paperwork. Then he noticed something mounted near the window. A security monitor. Surprisingly, it still had power. The screen displayed live feeds from cameras positioned throughout the warehouse. The Raven operatives moved efficiently below, searching every aisle. But one camera showed something unexpected. A woman wearing a gray hoodie slipped unnoticed through a side corridor. She moved carefully, staying behind crates and machinery. Ethan leaned closer to the screen. Pause that. Maria froze the image. The woman turned her head just enough for her face to become visible. Olivia. She was inside the warehouse. Alive. She wasn't tied up. She wasn't running blindly. She was following a specific route. Almost as if... Dien. She knows this building, Maria whispered. Before Ethan could answer, the office door shuddered under a heavy impact. Another. Then another. The filing cabinet slid several inches across the floor. They're coming through, Maria shouted. Ethan grabbed the leather portfolio and looked once more at the security monitor. Olivia stopped in front of a locked steel door at the far end of the warehouse. She reached into her pocket, removed a small brass key, unlocked the door, then disappeared inside. The camera feed abruptly went black. At the exact same moment, Ethan's phone buzzed with an incoming text from an unknown encrypted number. It contained only 6 words. She remembers everything. Stop her first. The message vanished from the screen before he could save it. A split second later, the office door burst inward. The Raven operatives stormed into the room. And leading them was the scarred man, his calm expression replaced by something Ethan hadn't seen before. Concern. For the first time since they had met. The scarred man wasn't hunting Ethan Carter. He was trying to reach Olivia Bennett before Ethan did. The safe house protective custody. The office door exploded inward. Splintered wood and twisted metal flew across the room as Raven operatives flooded inside. FBI, drop your weapons, Ethan shouted. No one obeyed. The scarred man pointed toward the portfolio under Ethan's arm. Take the file. 2 operatives rushed forward. Ethan fired a single controlled shot into the ceiling beam above them. The old structure groaned, and chunks of plaster rained down, forcing the men to dive for cover. "Move!" Ethan yelled. Maria kicked open a side window overlooking the warehouse loading dock. "We've got one chance!" The drop was nearly 12 feet. Without hesitation, Ethan leaped first, landing hard on a stack of wooden pallets. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he ignored it. Maria landed beside him seconds later. Behind them, Raven operatives leaned out of the shattered window, opening fire. Bullets ripped through cardboard boxes and shattered glass around the loading dock. Ethan and Maria sprinted across the warehouse yard toward an alley that emptied onto the street. Just as they reached the corner, a gray SUV skidded to a stop in front of them. The driver's window rolled down. "Get in." Kevin Morales, the FBI's digital forensics analyst. Ethan didn't hesitate. All three climbed inside, and Kevin slammed the accelerator to the floor. The SUV fishtailed before shooting into afternoon traffic. For several minutes, no one spoke. Kevin weaved through downtown streets, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds. "I wasn't sure I'd find you in time." Ethan looked back. A black sedan had emerged from the warehouse district and was following them at a distance. "We've got company." "I know." Kevin took a sharp right turn beneath an elevated railway. "They've been tracking my vehicle since I called you." Maria frowned. "You didn't tell us that." "I didn't know until 10 minutes ago." He tapped the dashboard. "I installed a signal detector after recovering data from the disposable phone." "What did it find?" Kevin handed Ethan a tablet. A blinking red dot moved across a city map. "There's another transmitter." Ethan looked confused. "I left the disposable phone behind." "You did? So what are they tracking?" Kevin glanced at the portfolio resting on Ethan's lap. The file. Ethan quickly opened the leather portfolio. Between two pages, barely noticeable, was a paper-thin electronic chip no larger than a postage stamp. "A passive GPS transmitter," Kevin said. "It activates whenever another device searches for it." Maria carefully removed the chip with a pair of tweezers. "They've been following the sketches." Ethan rolled down the window. The chip disappeared into the traffic below. Within seconds, the black sedan sped past the SUV, continuing to follow the false signal. Kevin smiled for the first time that day. "We just bought ourselves some time." An hour later, they arrived at a secluded lakeside cabin nearly 60 miles outside Chicago. Tall pine trees surrounded the property. A narrow gravel road was the only way in or out. The cabin looked old but well maintained. "No GPS," Kevin explained. "No internet. No public records linking it to the bureau." Maria looked around. "Whose place is this?" Kevin hesitated. "It belonged to my grandfather." Ethan studied the quiet shoreline. For the first time in days, there were no sirens, no surveillance cameras, no crowded streets, just the wind moving through the trees. This will work. Inside the cabin, Ethan spread Olivia's portfolio across a large wooden table. Now that they finally had time to examine it properly, the scope of her work became clear. Each sketch represented a different individual. Some appeared to be politicians, others were judges, executives, military officers, and law enforcement officials. Every portrait included handwritten notes, meeting locations, dates, vehicle descriptions, aliases. Olivia hadn't simply been drawing faces, she had been conducting her own investigation. For years. Maria stopped at one particular page. "Look at this." The sketch depicted the scarred man. Beneath it, Olivia had written, "Name unknown, former military, acts as field commander, never gives direct orders, reports to someone called the director." Ethan's eyes narrowed. The director. So the scarred man isn't running Raven.
No, he's taking orders.
Kevin turned another page. His expression changed instantly. "You need to see this." Pinned between two sheets was a faded newspaper clipping from 26 years earlier. The headline read, "Local family killed in mysterious cabin." Fiery below the article was a black and white photograph of the burned cabin. Maria compared it to the view outside the window, then slowly looked at Kevin. "This cabin." Kevin nodded uneasily. "It's the same one." A heavy silence settled over the room. According to the article, 4 people had died in the fire, but someone had circled one sentence in red ink. Authorities never located the couple's 8-year-old son. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. The missing boy. The same boy from the old photograph. The child Olivia had warned them about. He wasn't just connected to Project Raven. He had once lived in this very cabin. Before anyone could process the revelation, the cabin's landline telephone, silent for years, according to Kevin, rang loudly from the kitchen. Everyone froze. Kevin looked pale. That phone? 3 times. Ethan slowly walked toward it. On the 4th ring, he lifted the receiver. A calm, familiar voice spoke before he could say a word. "I was wondering how long it would take you to find the cabin." Ethan's grip tightened. It was Marcus Reed, and he knew exactly where they were. "Trust begins." Marcus Reed's voice remained calm, almost conversational. "You picked a beautiful place." Ethan said nothing. He motioned for Maria to trace the call while keeping the conversation alive. Maria quietly connected a portable line analyzer to the cabin's old telephone. Kevin immediately began typing on his laptop. "Ethan?" Marcus asked. "Still there?" "I'm listening." "Good." A faint laugh came through the receiver. "I'd hate to think 8 years of partnership ended without a proper conversation. You kidnapped Olivia." "No." "You murdered Daniel Whitmore." "No." "You've been lying to me." Marcus paused. "That one is complicated." Ethan tightened his grip on the phone, then explain. "I can't. Or you won't. Both." Kevin silently held up 3 fingers. 3 minutes. He needed 3 minutes to triangulate the signal. Marcus continued speaking. "You've always trusted evidence over people, Ethan. I was taught to, and that's exactly why they're beating you." "They?" "The people behind Raven." The name hung in the air. Marcus had just confirmed the organization's existence, without realizing it. "You know who they are," Ethan said. "I know enough." "Then help me stop them." "I've been trying," Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means everything you've been told about this investigation is incomplete." Kevin lowered one finger. 2 minutes remaining. Marcus sighed softly. Daniel Whitmore wasn't murdered because of the photograph. Then why? He was murdered because he finally remembered. The sentence sent a chill through the room. Remembered what? You'll understand soon enough. The line suddenly filled with static. Marcus's voice became distorted. "There." "What?" "W1. Leave W1 now." The call disconnected. Kevin stared at his screen. "I almost had it." "What happened?" The signal disappeared. Maria looked toward the window. "No." She pointed outside. It didn't disappear. It moved. Headlights emerged through the trees surrounding the cabin. 1. Then another. Then 4 more. Black SUVs rolled slowly down the gravel road without their headlights on. Ethan immediately switched off the cabin lights. Positions. Kevin grabbed a shotgun from an old gun cabinet. "I didn't think we'd ever need this." Maria checked her pistol. "How many?" Ethan looked through a narrow gap in the curtains. At least 6 vehicles. The engines shut off simultaneously. Doors opened. Dark figures stepped onto the property, far too many to count. Kevin swallowed. How did they find us? Ethan glanced at the silent telephone. The call wasn't for us. It was for them. Marcus hadn't been tracing Ethan, Someone else had been tracing Marcus, and by calling the cabin, he had unknowingly revealed their location. Or perhaps, time. He had called to warn them. Outside, the Raven operatives spread through the trees with military precision. They weren't rushing the cabin, they were surrounding it, waiting. The scarred man stepped into view, illuminated by the moonlight. He carried no rifle this time, only a flashlight. He spoke through a portable loudspeaker. "Agent Carter." His voice echoed across the lake. "We don't want you." Maria whispered, "That's a lie." The scarred man continued, "We only want Olivia Bennett's portfolio." Ethan remained silent. "If you surrender it peacefully." WF. 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 Everyone inside walks away. Kevin looked toward Ethan. "What if he's telling the truth?" Ethan answered without taking his eyes off the window. "He isn't." The scarred man smiled as though he had expected that answer. He raised one hand. Immediately, the Raven operatives stopped moving. No one fired. No one advanced. Instead, he placed something on the gravel driveway, then slowly stepped backward. "What is he doing?" Maria asked. Ethan watched carefully. The man returned to the safety of the tree line. Only then did Ethan notice the object left behind. A small black briefcase. Nothing else. No wires. No visible explosives. Just a briefcase sitting alone beneath the moonlight. "Stay here," Ethan said. Maria grabbed his arm. "It could be a bomb." "It could."
And you're still going?
If it's a bomb, they would have detonated it already. Keeping his weapon ready, Ethan opened the front door and cautiously approached the case. The night was unnaturally quiet. Even the wind had died. He knelt beside the briefcase. No lock. He slowly lifted the lid. Inside was a single tablet computer. Its screen illuminated automatically. A live video began playing. Olivia appeared on the screen. She was no longer tied to a chair. Instead, she stood inside what looked like an abandoned underground facility. Behind her were concrete walls covered in faded military markings. She looked directly into the camera. "Ethan." Her voice was calm but urgent. "If you're seeing this, they already know about the cabin." She took a deep breath. I remembered something. She reached toward the camera and held up an old photograph. The same photograph. But this version wasn't damaged. It showed all 5 people clearly. The little boy stood in the center. On his left, Daniel Whitmore. On his right, Richard Hayes. Standing behind them was an unfamiliar woman, and beside her, a younger version of Marcus Reed. Ethan's eyes widened. Marcus hadn't known the boy. He had grown up with him. Olivia continued, "I finally know who the missing boy is." Before she could say the name, the video abruptly froze. The screen went black. One line of white text appeared. "File deleted remotely." At that exact moment, a gunshot echoed from the forest behind the cabin. Not aimed at Ethan. A warning shot. The scarred man's voice called out through the darkness. "You've just lost your last chance to leave peacefully." The lights inside every Raven SUV switched on at once, flooding the cabin with blinding white beams. Then, from somewhere deep in the trees, came the unmistakable sound of a helicopter approaching. The midnight attack. The rhythmic thump of helicopter blades grew louder with every passing second. The sound rolled across the quiet lake, scattering birds from the surrounding trees. Ethan slammed the briefcase shut and sprinted back toward the cabin. "Inside!" he shouted. Maria threw the front door open as Kevin covered the tree line with the shotgun. The moment Ethan crossed the threshold, Maria locked the door behind him. The cabin's windows glowed white under the powerful searchlights from the Raven SUVs. Kevin peeked through a narrow gap in the curtains. "They're moving." Ethan looked. More than a dozen armed operatives were advancing through the trees in disciplined formation. They weren't charging. They were closing in slowly, cutting off every possible escape route. "They're waiting for the helicopter," Ethan said. "Why?" "So no one leaves." The helicopter emerged over the lake, flying low enough to send ripples across the dark water. Its lights remained off. Only the silhouette was visible against the cloudy night sky. Kevin frowned. "That's not news." "No." "Military?" Ethan studied its movement. Too quiet. The aircraft circled the cabin once before, disappearing behind the pine trees. Then the sound of its engine faded. Maria looked confused. It landed. But where? Before anyone could answer, every light inside the cabin suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Kevin cursed under his breath. They cut the power. Ethan switched on a flashlight. No. He pointed toward the breaker panel. The power never failed. Someone had flipped the main switch from inside the cabin. The three of them exchanged uneasy glances. They were not alone. A floorboard creaked somewhere upstairs. Everyone froze. Slowly, Ethan raised his pistol. Maria covered the staircase. Kevin whispered, "I checked every room when we got here." Another creak, followed by the faint sound of footsteps. Whoever was upstairs wasn't trying to hide anymore. Ethan began climbing the stairs one careful step at a time. The old wood groaned beneath his boots. The hallway at the top was dark. 4 closed doors, one slightly open. A cold breeze drifted through it. He pushed the door wider with the barrel of his pistol. The bedroom was empty, but the window was open. Rain drifted inside. On the floor beneath the window lay a muddy footprint. Fresh. Very fresh. Someone had entered the cabin before the Raven operatives arrived, then hidden upstairs, while Ethan, Maria, and Kevin examined the portfolio. A folded piece of paper rested on the windowsill. Ethan opened it. Only 4 handwritten words appeared. "Don't trust Kevin." His heartbeat slowed. The handwriting looked familiar. It matched Olivia's notes inside the portfolio. "Downstairs," Maria called out. "Ethan!" He hurried back to the living room. Kevin was kneeling beside the fireplace. "I found something." He pulled a loose brick from the stone wall. Hidden behind it was a small metal lockbox. Inside were several old cassette tapes, a faded photograph, and a brass key engraved with the number 17. Maria picked up the photograph. "This is the cabin." The picture had been taken decades earlier. 5 children stood on the dock overlooking the lake. Ethan immediately recognized 2 of them, a young Marcus Reed and Daniel Whitmore. The others were unfamiliar, until he reached the child standing at the end of the dock. The same boy from Olivia's photograph. Only this time, someone had written a name beneath the image. Nathan Hale. Kevin looked up. "So that's the missing boy." Ethan nodded slowly. "At least now we have a name." Just then, the cabin windows shattered simultaneously. Flashbang grenades crashed through the glass. "Down!" Maria screamed. The explosions filled the cabin with blinding white light and deafening noise. Furniture splintered as Raven operatives stormed through every entrance. Ethan fought through the ringing in his ears, pulling Maria behind an overturned table. Kevin disappeared into the smoke. "Kevin!" Ethan shouted. No answer. Gunfire erupted throughout the cabin. The firefight lasted less than a minute. Then, time. Silence. The smoke slowly cleared. Bodies lay scattered across the floor. Broken glass glittered beneath the moonlight. The Raven operatives were gone. So was Kevin, along with the leather portfolio. Only the old photograph remained in Ethan's hand. Maria staggered to her feet, blood trickling from a cut above her eyebrow. "Where's Kevin?" Ethan searched every room. No sign of him. No sign of the portfolio. Only an open back door leading into the forest. Near the doorway, He found Kevin's FBI identification badge lying in the mud. There were no bloodstains, no signs of a struggle, only a single boot print leading away from the cabin. Ethan picked up the badge, his expression hardening. He didn't get taken. Maria looked at him in disbelief.
You think he left with them?
Ethan turned the badge over. Tucked beneath it was a folded note. He opened it. One sentence had been written in neat black ink. Some betrayals begin long before the first lie. As the wind carried the sound of the departing helicopter into the distance, Ethan realized the attack on the cabin had never been about killing them. It had been a retrieval mission. Someone had infiltrated his team from the very beginning, and Kevin Morales had just vanished with the one piece of evidence capable of exposing the entire Raven network. I'd be happy to continue. Here's the next chapter in the same style.